Welcome back, Rebels. Your pal Gray here, coming at you with another Star Wars Destiny video. Today I'm going to talk to you about card and game states. What the heck does that mean, you might be asking your screen right now? So I use this term to describe the condition or state that a card or even a player is in the game. I know that sounds kind of vague, and the rules, while as specific as they get, don't necessarily explain the importance of these things in practice. We all know there's a difference between reading the rules and then playing a game, and there are always going to be nuances that the developers are trying to convey, but they don't always do so very directly because that can be really difficult. So here I am today bringing you this third installment as promised in the rules clarification video series, and I admit the theme sort of ran away from me a little bit, but I hope that after you watch this video that Star Wars Destiny and some of its effects not only make more sense to you, but that I've also given you a perspective that you might have missed while just reading the rules. So check that out after these messages from my sponsor. Right, so we're back, and you know what we're going to talk about today. But why, Gray? I already read the dang rules, you're saying to yourself. I know you did, but even just today at my friendly local game shop, someone was asking about the difference between readying and exhausting a character. I know they know this because they've been playing Destiny for a while. But again, we all forget the terminology, and some days even I have to crack open the rulebook again so I can avoid altercations at the store and just general headaches. I mean, I can remember reading the rulebook the first time before ever getting my hands on any cards or dice. And it went a little bit like this. What the fuck? But now I'm more like a rules lawyer, and I'm not telling you to be that way, but believe me, all of this stuff is worth talking about and definitely worth reviewing. So let's avoid any of those potential headaches that I had and start with talking about states for characters, upgrades, and supports. Characters all start in the ready position at the beginning of the game and are readied during the upkeep phase. All this means is you have them turned upright, so the title of the card is across the top. In Magic the Gathering, they call this untapping, and I still hear that term all the time in the local stores, and it's just as accurate. Most people understand what that means and what you're talking about. You untap the thing, turn it upright so you can read all the text. Cool? So this Luke Skywalker here is what a readied card looks like, just in case the explanation wasn't sufficient. And just to be clear on the terms here, readying is done during the upkeep phase, and the character, support, or upgrade that you just readied is now considered to be in the readied state. When you activate a character, you turn them to the side and you roll out their dice like this. Activating is an action, and once a character or support is activated, their state changes to exhausted. This is a bit tricky because of what we're going to talk about in just a minute, so hold that thought. Only characters and certain supports can be activated though, and when they are activated, you roll out their associated character dice, whether it's 1 die or 2 die, and all attached upgrade dice. You cannot refuse to roll out a die. Just like when a character is activated to then become exhausted, some cards in the game allow themselves to be exhausted by use, or can be forced to become exhausted when someone plays a card or effect on it. It's only confusing because the way a card looks after it's activated and when it becomes exhausted is exactly the same thing. They're both turned to the side. The only difference is that an exhausted card did not get to roll out its associated die. It's just visually it ends up looking the same, and either way, and for the purposes of readying, whether a card was exhausted by force or because it was activated actually doesn't matter. So cards like Makashi Training and personal shield are examples of upgrades that you can exhaust voluntarily as either an action or in the event that a condition is met in the game. There are only a few types of these cards in the game, but they're all pretty cool. You ready them during your upkeep just like everything else. And I feel like, the reason that the designers chose to allow these cards to have abilities like this that exhaust them is so that essentially you can only use the effect once. This way, when it becomes exhausted, it's tapped out for a round and cannot be used twice unless by the interaction of another card that allows it to be readied again prior to the upkeep. Being able to ready a character a second time during a round is a very powerful effect. Why? Well, because being able to use a character twice in a round is super powerful. You're essentially double dipping on their dice, and if that character has some really good dice, then you could be in for a real treat. So to my right here, there are two characters that have readying abilities built into them. They both get there differently, and both have the potential to put out additional damage or support when you can make it happen. Balatik on the bottom left here actually sees a lot of high-level play. In fact, he was a character in several of the top decks from Awakenings all the way through the Spirit of Rebellion meta, and in competitive play, his condition to ready himself will inevitably be met through just natural play of the game, right? I mean, a character's going to die eventually. I mean, that's just destiny, and that makes it easy to use him twice per turn. Of course, you have to have him already exhausted so that you can ready him again, right? And that's just a trick with readying a character, right? A second time. You want to activate that character to put them into the exhausted state and then ready them or use all of their dice in either order, then activate them again once all their dice have left the pool so that they can roll as many dice in a second time as possible. You couple this effect with redeploy and you have some serious damage potential happening. And Ahsoka, on the other hand, has a very straightforward reading ability that you can actually control. It remains to be seen whether or not this will be like totally amazing way to get more damage each turn, or if she's going to be outclassed by something else in the Empire at War set. So here to my right are some cards that can affect the readied state of a card in some way. Leadership is a card that sees occasional play in decks. It's mostly kind of janky because you have to exhaust a unique red character, and the hope is that you'll ready a character that is significantly better than the one you exhausted. There's not a whole lot of decks that this currently works super well in, but there's a lot of decks that it does work pretty okay in. But either way, the potential is there to create really big swing plays in the right conditions. Strategic Planning is a card that has been basically ignored for the past year, but now with Empire at War right around the corner and all these spoilers showing us how powerful supports and vehicles are going to be in the new set, people are taking a look at this card again. It has the potential to be a very, very powerful control card. Use it to ready your vehicle for a second chance at damage, or to exhaust an opponent's vehicle to prevent big damage. It's very flexible like that, and in this case, flexibility is really, really good. Now, the price of failure, last but not least, is a bit like leadership in a sense, but it has a larger cost to it. The thing to mention here is that it doesn't matter whether the character you're defeating has 1 health left or 10. Price of failure is going to have the same effect, so you'll often see this used as a Hail Mary, so to speak, in games to get Darth Vader, Sith Lord, a second swing at your opponent. You'll use Price of Failure on your Tusken Raider who's about to die, or your Royal Guard, or maybe in the up-and-coming set, you'll be able to leadership and Price of Failure Captain Phasma with Darth Vader, so that's scary. And since this thing is 0 cost, it can really come out of nowhere. You're going to see it in a lot of mono blue decks, but also potentially in any deck with a big baddie and a really small baddie that's kind of disposable. So be on the lookout for this card because it's going to continue to see play. Guaranteed. The last topic we're going to discuss in this video is battlefields. And battlefields have only two terms associated with them, and they are claim and control. So how are they different? Well, while playing a round of Destiny, a player can choose to claim the battlefield. They can then choose to utilize the claim ability on the battlefield if it has one. And when a player claims the battlefield, they are now considered to be its controller, and that player is in control of the battlefield. And remember that the player who won the roll-off at the start of the game chose which battlefield is in play, right? The player whose battlefield was chosen is in control of the battlefield and gets to go first, but they did not claim the battlefield. The difference between claim and control is an important distinction because some cards actually require you to control the battlefield in order to work. So let's talk about those cards then. Cards like Defensive Position and Dug In are actually totally dead cards in your hand without controlling the battlefield, and because their text specifically says, play only if you control the battlefield. So if you were that player whose battlefield was chosen at the start of the game and you go first, you can play these cards on your very first turn. Differently, Planetary Uprising is a hero support which requires you to claim the battlefield for its active effect to work. So it's not enough just to control the battlefield. You have to claim it for this to work. So here I feel the need to point something out. If you claim the battlefield, you do control the battlefield. But just because you control the battlefield does not mean that you claimed it. And these next two cards are going to illustrate the difference in just a little more, actually. So the card on the left here is Lockdown, and it allows you to take control of the battlefield. And the text in parentheses reminds you that this does not claim the battlefield, hence it does not end your turn, and all your future actions are not forfeit as a result. And that's a major difference. You don't get the benefit of claiming just because you now control the battlefield. Similarly, another card, Director Krennic, relies on control of the battlefield to maximize his effect. So these two cards pretty much go hand in hand. If you control the battlefield with Krennic, he gets to roll out not only his dice, but also a Death Trooper die. And that's pretty sick because without controlling the battlefield, he doesn't get to roll in that die, and that stinks. So, Rebels, I hope that you had as good a time watching this one as I had in recording it. You know, these videos take a long time to finish, but I tell you, it is worth it if I can get the right information into the minds of the right people. And, you know, I feel like I covered a lot of ground here today, but there's always going to be questions. So if you don't feel like emailing Lucas Litzinger and waiting like a month for a response on something, that's fine. Why not just ask me in the comments and I'll get back to you a lot sooner than he will. At least I think so. I'm just kidding though. Like, I'm just kidding on all that stuff. Like, I'm just a guy on YouTube who is interpreting his stuff anyway, so don't put any weight behind my words. Anyway, in closing, I wish you guys all the best of luck in your upcoming casual games, kit tournaments, store championships, whatever you're doing. Let's keep Destiny alive and well in our respective areas and grow this game bigger than anything the world's ever seen. Do all that, and I'll keep making these videos. So lastly, you know, I do want to thank all of you for taking the time to watch these videos. And if you like what you see, please feel free to subscribe to me and tell all your friends about me, because a referral is the most humbling thing that I could ever have. So until next time, may the Force be with you.